Hi, today we're going to go through some tile stuff. I'm going to start off by showing you how to do a shower wall. This is our washroom in the basement development. It's probably looking quite similar to any washroom that you've got in your home, so you can relate the stuff you learn here and how to lay it out properly, and you could go use that at your house to renovate your washroom or do a brand new washroom in a basement development. So what I like to do is I like to measure a center line up the center of the wall because I always do start with the back wall. And then I need to get a level line established above the edge of the tub so that I can put a ledger board on. Then I run my tile up to the ceiling. I come back the next day, remove the ledger board and tie back into the bathtub. Reason being for that is that with the bathtub flange here and the edge of the bathtub, it's not always poured perfectly or made perfect. So if you're starting with your first row on the edge of the tub, it's quite difficult because you're going to have to make adjustments along the bottom edge to maintain a level line across the top. So what I like to do is just put a wood board perfectly level, allowing me to fill in the tile after I've got the rest of the tile complete so that the weight of all this tile is not pushing down on one that's uneven on this tile edge. So you can take the time and pre-cut your bottom row and not do the wood way, but I think you end up with a much better success rate going off something that's perfectly level rather than the tub edge, which is not. So I'm going to begin by putting a center line up the center of this wall so that I can check my measurements over to the edges of the wall to make sure that my tile is going to run in a nice perfect manner. So okay, I've got 59 and a half, 59 and a quarter, so you can see it's in and out a little bit, 59 and a quarter. That's because I measured at the taper edge, obviously. So I'm going to go with 59 and a quarter, bring that in half. Check it on both sides. Okay, so it is very important that this line is exactly center, so that's why I've taken the time to measure out back and forth on both sides. This is going to be the center line that your tile follows off of to maintain levelness as you're going up the wall. So grab your 4-foot level. When I'm doing wall tiles, smaller grout joints, things like that, I like to use a fine tipped pencil rather than a big construction pencil, just so that my line is a little tighter. Okay, so I'm measured up to here. Really good practice with the spirit level is that if you ran 4 feet of your line on this side, you want to spin your level and use the other edge this time, because if your level is out a little bit, it will kind of correct itself if you go one way, then the other way, then the other way, rather than if you keep using the one side of the level and say your level is not showing perfect level, then your line will start to curve. So go up halfway up the wall, switch the level to the other side, connect back on your line and get your line right up to the ceiling. Okay, so this is my center line of the wall. Now I'm going to take some measurement checks off the center line to the walls just to see if everything's running parallel. I did check this wall earlier with the level. It's shooting very close, but it is a little bit out. So this is where you're going to be able to tell how the tiles are going to fit in running off the center line. So 29.58. So it's all shooting good. It's within 3/16 of an inch down the whole line. So let's go check the other side. Okay, and that side's running perfect. So it does appear that I have a little bit of a curve on the wall around this point on the wall, but not a big deal. Most of it's looking nice and tight. If you're showing quite a bit of a difference, maybe up to an inch out or something like that, you still have to maintain off a center level line. So that's where you're going to try to hide it a little bit, because you work off the center line, and the unevenness of the tile on the inside of the walls, if you use a larger tile, will be less noticeable. It will be very noticeable if your center line goes off line to correct your sides. So this is the most important line that is on this tub right now. So next, when you got your center line all the way up the center, I'd like to take the tile that I'm using. I'm gonna measure the bottom edge of the tub and find my lowest point so that, I'm gonna find, the lowest point so that I can cut down the tiles and use a full tile on the bottom. So I'll explain that to you as I'm going. Okay, so my bubble is closer to the line on the right, which means that this side of the tub is higher than that side of the tub over there. So that tells me that I need to start over there with the tile, full tile, and then when I get to correcting it over on this side, I will be cutting off the full tile. If I started on the side that is higher, when I got to the other side, I would have to add a piece into the bottom of the tile. So hope that makes sense. So again, with the low side, got my tile, set it up on the wall. Now, if you can look here in the bottom here, I'm just going to show you how uneven this tub is and why I choose to use the ledger board. See how it's rising as it goes into the corner right here? Let me show that again. So there's just a little natural curve in the tub, which throws a lot of people off at the start. So like I said, it's better to just use a ledger board and come back and put those pieces in at the end where you can take more time and cut them in perfectly. So here's my tile. I'm just gonna mark a line on it. Got my level. Gonna set up on that line nice and level. So level off, and again the same technique as before, spinning it. Okay, so now you can see here I've got a nice level line established across the back edge of the tub. We started with our low point. We're nice and level, so you can see that I'm just gonna have to grind the bottom of this tile off a tiny bit because of that curve of the tub. You can see, just jumps up a little higher on our line. As I come down, you can see, you can watch here. I'll just spin out of the way for you. So you can see that I've already got it cut off, like I'm already getting a 3/16 higher than the line, which means to make this tile run level, I'm gonna have to cut that off the bottom. So now I'm going to continue and mark a level line out this way and out this way. And then I like to mark a vertical level line up there to put my metal Schluter edge onto. And then I'm ready to do my dry fit of the tile, just to do some last minute figuring out of the measurements, how these tiles work with each other, and figuring out my pattern and such. Okay. All right, so I've got my level lines across here. I just went past the raw edge of the drywall onto the primer a little bit with my line. I'm not too sure exactly how far I'm gonna let my tile run on this edge yet. What I like to do too is leave this moisture resistant drywall unprimed so that it gets a better bond to the paper rather than priming this all and you're trying to bond your adhesive to primer, which is got a little bit more of a flatter, smoother surface, so it won't grab on as well. So another thing that I'll just go over quickly here too, with the tub flange, when you're bringing your drywall down, you don't cover over the flange, you just need to butt into it, and then your tiles will come and cover over the top, so you get your nice perfect finish here. All right, well, I'm gonna level these vertical lines and then we'll cut our wood batten to go around the edge and our Schluter to go up on the sides, and then we should be ready to go. Okay, so now that you've got your vertical line leveled here in the center and a horizontal line replicating the top of your first row of tiles, you're gonna measure your back width to cut down the wood that you're using for your ledger board. I've just used some scrap baseboard from when I was upstairs doing some construction. It's about 4 inches wide, made out of MDF. Just has to be nice and smooth and straight so you can follow this line perfectly and then attach it to the studs. All right, I've got 59 1/4. So now you've got your ledger board cut to size. This board here is gonna go in, and you can see it's tight from wall to wall. Gonna be very easy for me to attach to the studs now, and I'll finish off in here once I figure out how far I'm coming out. Now I can take this board and out in a larger space, set it on the ground and begin to do a dry fit of my wall tile before I start. That way I'll know all the measurements of the tile, what size shims I'm going to use, all sorts of answers will come out when we do the dry fit. So let's go take a look. Okay, so now that you've got your ledger board cut to size, I can use the floor to establish some lines and do a dry fit that is accurate to what's actually going to happen in the shower. By doing this, I can achieve a couple of things: knowing what my cuts are going to be like on the side, knowing what the tile is going to look like, also knowing what it's going to look like where it hits the ceiling. Like if I'm starting with a full tile at the bottom, I would probably like to finish with a full tile at the top. So this will establish what is actually going to happen with these tiles. So Here's my board. Just gonna start by putting it against the wall. Okay. I'm gonna mark my center line on the board, which was 29 5/8. Click on the edge. Okay, so that's my center line. Now, because I can't use my level to level this line on the floor, I've got to establish a square line off of here so that I can just measure over, and then I'll have a fairly similar level line to what's in the shower. Just gonna use my framing square. I'm gonna mark this block of wood so that I know that if it's got moved during any of this operation. So, framing square. Up on the edge. Mark a line. Just going to put a straight edge like a level on the existing line and extend it. If you're parallel down here, you should just be able to extend your line. Okay, and what I can do here, because this is representing the inside corner from top of the tub to ceiling, I can measure that off my line in there and establish where the ceiling height would be so that I can make a line that way. So I'm going to go in the washroom and just measure that up. Okay, so here's my line, which is represented by the board that's inside the living room there. I'm going to run my tape to the ceiling. Check a few points. I got 71, so I'm going to move along. 71 in the 16th. And back to 71. So fairly safe to say that I can use 71 in a 16th, and the tiles will just get shaved down a little bit on the inside corners if that's where it got a little bit tighter. So 71 and 1/16 of an inch should be my total rise from my level line to the ceiling. Okay, so now that I've got that measurement, 71 and a 16th, I'm going to measure off my board, carry on down to here, 71 and a 16th. That should be approximately where my ceiling stops. So now that I've got this square line from the board, I'm just going to measure over that 29 5/8 so that I can get my center line finished through here. Now that you've got your center line marked out, just grab a line all the way through. So I'm going to take that same 71 and a 16th, which was the total height from the top of ledger to the ceiling, mark that over here. Just going to connect those two lines up. Okay, so got my ledger board cut to the width of my shower. I've got the wall line replicated in here. Off of this line, I've measured to my center, the 29 5/8, and I've got that line going consistent all the way through. And I've got the top of my ceiling marked out here. I'm ready to begin the dry fit with the wall tiles. I'm going to use these wall tiles in brick pattern. So something like that. When I do a dry fit, I like to be precise. So I'm going to use my tile spacers. For this job, I've chosen 16-inch tile spacers. I like to put 2 in each joint, and wherever it makes contact, just to keep even spacing throughout. So this is the type of spacer that I've chosen. In other jobs, I set aside a couple that are right here. Other jobs that I've used, this is a 1/4-inch spacer. More would be typically used on the floor. This one's 3/16, just a little bit smaller. Here's a 1/8 spacer, and here's the 16-inch spacer that we're gonna use. When you're using smaller joints, keeping your tile looking good is a little bit tougher because you don't have as much play to move the tiles around. When you're using a larger joint, the success rate is much easier because you can fool the eye and adjust the tile a little bit if necessary. So that's the plus and minus of different size grout joints. So with my pattern, I'm doing the bricklayer pattern like I had mentioned. I can't just have the one center line to follow up because I'm gonna have 2 tiles just off the center line like that, and then my next tile is going to be staggered exactly half off of that. So I need to establish another line parallel down so that I can line this front edge up with keeping all the tiles even as I go up the wall. How I'm going to do that is find out the center of this tile, mark a line on it, set it on the center line, mark a line on the other side, and figure out the offset of the tile to create the offset center line. Okay, 11 3/4. So I'm going to measure that down to 5 7/8. Mark it on both sides. Okay, so there's my center line. Got the tile sitting on the center line. Now I'm going to take my pencil and just mark the edge of this tile, but keep in mind I'm using 1/16 of an inch spacers, so the lines are actually the center where the spacer goes, so I need to be just a 1/2 of a 1/16, a 32nd off this edge of the line to be correct. Okay, so that's a nice offset line established there. Okay, so the offset line is exactly 5 7/8, which is half of the tile thickness. So 5 7/8. I'll just get my level. Put that through. Okay, so center line, offset center line. So you can see by dry fitting already, we've established our offset center line to the exact spacing that the tile requires to have to keep a 1/2 center spacing. So like I said, quite important to do the dry fit, and we're going to start ours up right now. here's my line going down representing the wall, so I know that I can make these cuts to these first couple of tiles and they should run fairly consistent all the way up each side. That's why I only make the one line on the one side, because by marking the center line, it should be the same on the other. So if you're still nervous about this situation, how your tiles are going to fit in, draw the other line and create the full template, then you'll know exactly how everything's going to hit. So just replicate what your shower wall looks like down onto the floor and go from there. Another thing I'm noticing is that if I run my tiles full tile at the bottom of the tub, I'm going to have to cut this one, just this tiny strip off the top. That's fairly acceptable to have it a little bit different, but you never want it to be a thin sliver piece at the ceiling. So if you do have just a small little distance more to make it before you're going to be at your ceiling, then you want to make your adjustments at the bottom of your tub so that you can correctly hit into the ceiling with a majority of a full tile. The look is much better, it being a larger tile at the ceiling than a skinny little piece. And if there is some inconsistencies at the ceiling, then you're going to see those in a smaller tile easier. So this is basically my pattern that I'm going to use up the wall. I think this row right here, I'm going to change in a border piece that will match my floor. So I'm going to take these out right now and just have a look with those two in. Okay, you can see my border piece is a little bit smaller than the actual tiles. So I'm just going to shove this down and reset all my lines, of course. Okay, so you can see here that me making the smaller border piece put my ceiling tiles right on the ceiling line. So this is effectively the pattern I'm going to use. Rather than having to cut these ones up at the top, I've made a modified border piece that will make the spacing perfect. So here we are. We're going to start gluing it up in the shower and we'll go from there. All right, so now that we've finished with our dry fit, I want to get my level line going up this wall so that I can finish here just past the tub. So what I'm going to do is measure the length from the wall to the edge of the tub, relate it to my tiles to see what type of layout I'm going to do as far as coming down the sides. So measuring 29.5 for the length of my tub. So I'm going to take 3 of my tiles, just set them up in here. Okay, so you can see that this is quite a ways further than the edge of the tub. So I can work with a little bit smaller of a detail. There's no set dimension that you've got to come off your tub here. I wouldn't go any less than 3 inches, and I probably wouldn't go any more than 6, and I'm getting 6.5. So I'm going to reduce that a little bit just for aesthetic reasons. So how I'm going to figure that out is dry fit these tiles lengthwise. Okay, so now that I've got these dry fit lengthwise, I'm going to measure. they go 35.5 inches. Okay, so that's right there. Now, that is 6.5 inches further than the edge of the tub, which I don't really like because if you remember from our offset lines, these tiles are 5 7/8 to the center, which means if I did a brick pattern past the edge here, I would have half a tile at 5 7/8 and then a filler strip, and then half a tile and then a filler strip. So for my pattern, keeping this overhang under the 5 7/8 is ideal for aesthetic purposes. I'm going to choose to just go with 4 inches past the edge of the tub. So I'm measuring 29.5. So I'm going to go 33.5. Okay, so that's the approximate line of where this level line is going to hit up the wall going up with this pattern. So I think that's going to work for me. Now I'm going to transfer this 33.5 on the wall and level up. All right, so that's my level line on this side. I'm going to proceed with doing the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now that I've got my two level lines established on each side, I am going to use a metal Schluter tile edge. I won't need one up at the ceiling because I am going to tile right to the ceiling. Don't need one down at the tub, just two vertical ones on each side of the shower walls. Okay, so I've got 94 3/4. And 94 3/4. So I am going to cut that a tiny bit shorter, so 94 5/8. The reason being is once the floor goes in, I'll make a sight on the spot cut at the bottom of the Schluter for the floor to go underneath the tile edge. So 94 5/8 is what I'm going to cut these down to. When I return, we're going to mount the back ledger board, we're going to mount the Schluter on each side, and then we're going to measure for our side ledger boards, and then we should have all of our lines established and ledger board on, and we will measure over that 5 7/8 to create our offset line, and we'll begin to tile. Okay. Okay, so now you've got your tile edge cut to the right height. You've got your back ledger board and your two side ledger boards. It's time to begin to install them. So I'm going to take the back one and start with that. I like to just hold it in position, mark where the studs are from where I see the drywall screws. Okay, so on something like this, it's easier to pre-start your screws when you're trying to precisely make sure the edge is going to be at the top. So okay. So you can see I'm right on my line. Just going to run this screw into the stud. I'm on my line here. Okay, back ledger board, all in, nice and level. Now I'm going to attach the tile edge because my side ledger is actually going to sit on top of the tile edge. So I can't really install this one first, or I'd have to try to tuck it in after. So I'm just going to attach the tile edge to the line. To do that, I just use a hand stapler. You can see at the bottom of the wall here. Just shoots a nice little staple. Okay, so I made a little shortening to these on the bottom for the tile to go underneath, but at the top here, you're definitely going to want to push it right up to the ceiling. Make sure you're on your pencil line. Fire staple in. Keep going all the way down on your pencil line. Every 1 foot. Okay, so if you don't have a stapler, you can use roofing nails. They got a nice flat head on them, so they won't get in the way of your tile. Okay, so these nails and the staples are just to hold this edge temporarily anyways. When the tile goes over top with the adhesive behind it, that's what actually secures the tile edge into the tile, is the adhesive. This is just temporary holding it there so that you can get your tile up there. So. Okay, so now that your tile edge is on, I'm just going to install the last ledger on each side. You can see here that I need to make a little cut from the inside corner to on top. Mark this one out. Also, you can see on this one, I'm going to hit a hole in it. I need to put a hole in there to go over the tub stem. so I'll just cut these and be ready to final attachment. Cut the wrong measurement. Okay, so see I'm all attached in nice there. Schluter is all on the line. That side's ready to go. Okay, so got the ledger on all the way around, got my steel tile, or my tile edge up, got my center line marked. All that's left to do is to mark my 5/8 offset center line. Then I should be ready to start gluing down the tiles. They're both level, so they should be running parallel. So I should see 5/8 up, 5 5/8, or 5 7/8, and I do. So finish leveling that all the way up. Okay, so you've seen me do the dry fit on the floor. Another method is doing a dry fit right in position on the wall. Just helps with confidence in tiling, knowing exactly how things are going to go before you get the glue out. For this demonstration, I'm just going to use some regular painting masking tape. Go through and actually tape the tiles to the wall just so I can have a final look, approval, and just know how everything's going to work. So I'm going to start up here. So I'm right on my center line. Just gonna push that piece up there, tape it down. Okay, so I've got my floor in on the bottom, so I'm gonna measure for my cuts on the side. Half of the tile would be 5 7/8. With the tile that I've chosen, an exact half tile is gonna work on this side. Just gonna double check on this side. And it's gonna work on both, so I'm gonna take out one of my tiles, measure the 5 7/8. This is a quick cutter for ceramic tiles. This will speed your job up dramatically, but it can only be used on certain tiles. You cannot use this type of cutter on stone. Some thicker floor tiles and things like that you'll struggle with as well. The advantage to this is just quick cutting right on the spot. Where cutting with a wet saw, you've got to go cut the piece, let it dry off, set up a wet saw, and deal with all that other stuff. So definitely speeds your job up if you select a tile that you can use one of these cutters with. So here I am gonna set up on the line. This is a gauge so that I can continually cut the same pieces. So I'm right on my line, bring that up to it. There we go. So now I don't have to keep marking each piece out. Slide that across. One is often enough. I like to go two. Press down. And there we have it. Just kind of marks the score line, breaks it perfectly. Okay, so that's first row dry fit. Grab your tape and just put a secure band of tape across the whole top of those so they can't delaminate when you're building up your next level. For this demonstration, I'm just gonna go one more row for you guys just to see how you would do a dry fit on the wall. In past tile jobs, when I've got benches to go around in a steam shower or just some trickier situations where floors are not level and stuff like that, I dry fit everything. On this job, probably didn't really need to do it on a smaller one like that, but you have to make that decision yourself at home on how tricky your project is and how confident you are in doing the job. So this time around, because I'm doing the brick pattern, I'm going to use my offset line to line my tile up with. Okay, so got my second row in. Just gonna put another strip of tape across the top. Okay, so that's 2 rows of the pattern that I'm going to use. Dry fit in. You could take your level and double check that you're all running level at the top here. You can see that I'm on my level line for the center. I'm on my offset line for the half staggered pattern, and looks like we're good to go. Take some measurements from the ceiling. 59 1/4, 59 1/4, 59 1/4. So everything's looking really good here for me. I'm going to take my dry fit off and get ready to start gluing it down. Okay, so we're ready to go with gluing our tiles down. I'm just gonna use this piece of cardboard, protect the bathtub. There we go. I'm using wall mastic to apply my tiles to the wall. It really doesn't matter what you use. There's thin set I could use for the walls, mastic I could use. You just have to read the directions and what the adhesives are suitable for. Some things like this glue, you would not use this white glue to glue down to the floor. So each product that you come across is going to have different limitations. Just make sure that what you're using works for your situation. Are you applying to concrete? Are you applying to drywall? Are you applying to a waterproof membrane? Etc., etc. So very important there. The other thing with adhesives is you're going to always get a trowel size to tile size guide. We're using 6-inch by 12-inch tiles. So I would look it up on here, up to 6-inch V-notch trowel. So this is a V-notch trowel. That would be for a smaller tile like this. 6x6 or larger, which we fall into, is 1/4-inch by 1/4-inch square notch trowel. So 1/4-inch deep by 1/4-inch wide. And then 12 by 12 or larger. So if I was going to put these tiles on the wall, it says 1/4-inch wide by 3/8 tall square notch trowel. So you can see that this type of adhesive can glue each of these tiles down, but you definitely need to size your trowel to the appropriate size that the adhesive is telling you. So got the type of trowel selected, got my adhesive. This will open. There we go. Just going to show you a couple different methods. Normally when I'm starting my first course, I am taking this wood ledger board out, so I don't want to smear glue on it, or it might actually get glued into with the tile, cause me a problem getting it out. So I'm going to start by back buttering my tiles. So what that is just smearing glue up on the back of the tile, making sure your trowel is on a 45-degree angle, smoothing it out, and then sticking it on. It's a little bit slower than taking the glue, spreading it on all over the wall, but it's more accurate, allows you to stop at whatever point you need to. If you gotta go grab the kids from school or you've just gotta go for lunch, you can kind of pack up and stop wherever you stop if you're doing the back butter method. I prefer to do the back butter method to get my tile started. Then I'll proceed with smearing the glue on the full wall and that'll speed up the installation of the tile. So one thing too with these notch trowels, most of the manufacturers, but it will be labeled on your glue or adhesive that you're using, recommend that you glide your trowel on a 45-degree when you're spreading it out. When you do that, that just allows the consistency of the glue that's coming out of the edge of the trowels to be consistent. So don't do one swipe down here and another swipe like that. Keep it all on a 45-degree angle, and it'll keep all your glue the same thickness, which will keep all your tiles at the same level on the front face. So we're about to start up. Just gonna go into my trowel, into my bucket. Like to spread a fairly even amount at the start on the tile, and then I'll begin combing it out. get it right near the edge. Okay, so can you see the consistency of the height of all that adhesive? That's why you want to keep your trowel consistent on the 45-degree angle as you're going through. I usually just clean up the edge a little bit with my finger. Okay, so this one's ready to be attached to the wall. Okay, firmly set. Start up with another one. Okay, so got two tiles on. What I'm looking for when I'm applying the tiles is that they're nice and flush with each other. That's when I can work on different degrees of pressure to make sure that they're nice and flat with each other. So that's looking pretty good. Just gonna finish off the rest of this bottom row that way. Okay, so now that we've back buttered and got our first row of tile installed, it's a good opportunity to take time to check if your first course is running level. Then I'm going to show you a different way to apply the adhesive straight to the wall, much quicker on the tiling. But like I said, for the first row, back buttering for me has always been the way to go. Allows me to make these small little double checks to make sure everything's running good. So, got my level. Sit on my tile, and you can see here that I'm running perfectly level, which is what you want to see. This gives me the good feeling that everything's going very well, so I'll just glue up a larger section. I'll probably glue from the top of these tiles to about here and put these tiles in quite a bit quicker. Okay, so now that I've showed you the back butter method, I'm going to show you a way to apply the adhesive right to the wall. Notches on this side, flat edge on this side. I like to get a little bit of adhesive on the wall, spread it down with the flat edge side to roughly the thickness that this would be, and then comb it out on that 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to show you on a small patch on the wall first. and then I'll proceed with finishing my area. Okay, so get the glue on there, use the flat edge to kind of get it to the right thickness. Now you're using your combed edge on the 45-degree angle, sliding it through, okay? So you can run your adhesive this way, you can run your adhesive this way, you can run your adhesive multiple ways, as long as you stay with that same 45-degree angle, okay? Now these lines, again, are very important, so when you're gluing around your lines, make sure they're dark enough that they'll show through when you're combing your adhesive. You can see that I can see the green drywall through there, so I'm likely going to be able to see this line through it as well. So just make sure you have that ability at your situation as well. So I'm going to begin with spreading out the rest of this wall now. Okay, so I've got my adhesive combed onto the wall, fairly consistent. I've got my lines visible that I can see. I'm ready to start fitting my tiles into the adhesive. So same procedure as the back buttering. To install them, just set them flat, give them a little squeeze, make sure they're flush with the last ones, and put in your spacers. Okay, so now that I've got 4 rows going on there, I'm going to want to take some time just to double check all the gaps, recheck my level across the top, as well as make sure that they're flat with each other. So kind of feel all the joints, make adjustments as necessary. Sometimes you just need to wiggle it a little bit, give it a little tap, vibrate it down just to get it flush. We are looking pretty good with that. Now I'll just grab my level. Got my level. Don't stick it in the glue, just so right it on the edge of the tile. And you can see I'm still floating perfectly level. Good on that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that everything's looking good here, I'm going to proceed with spreading out to the next section, which is about here. Double check everything once again, and then finish up to the ceiling. Okay, so now that you're at your ceiling, good idea just take a putty knife, clean off the extra that's on the drywall. Much easier now than when it's dry. Okay, so you can see here I'm nicely spaced off the ceiling that once I grout and do a silicone joint up there, it's perfect. Got my band in to match the floor. All my spaces look nice. Gaps look all even. I've used the straight edge to lay flat on the tile to see how flat the tile is laying. That's all good. You're now ready to proceed and start with your two sides, working from the inside corner down to this edge. It's nice because we've got a full tile ending in a corner and then a half tile, so I'll be taking this full tile, connecting right into that, and using another half tile to connect into those. So I'll have the exact corner that it should be. The cutoff is working for the other side. Okay, so now that you've got all your pieces cut for your shower walls, I've set up a dry fit of everything just to show you one last time exactly what we were doing in the shower walls with the lines. So you can see here that I've got the metal Schluter down the center. This is representing my left wall of the shower. This is representing the right wall of my shower, meeting up to the metal edge. So these pieces are identical in size, as well as these pieces are identical in size, all the way up the pattern. Then it goes cut, full, cut to the wall, okay? So the two lines that I created in the shower to come up with my tile sizes at the back end were this grout line here and this grout line here. So you can see here that everything is lined up nice to the steel edge, but you can see that if you follow your eye down this line, there's definitely some unevenness in the tile. That is the unevenness of the back shower wall. In my case, from the bottom point to the top point, my back wall is actually out of level, 1/4 inch. So from this point to the top, the tiles get 1/4 inch larger. So that side is quite a bit straighter, but with taking your time, marking your lines, by the time I'm done installing this tile, no one will really be able to see the 1/4 inch difference. The trick is just knowing what's going to happen in your tile layout. If you are out of level, then you need to work your tile to make it fully eyed to look right still. So I think we're ready to go. Okay, so now that I've done my dry fit in the shower walls and I've come up with my two sizes of cut tiles that will be against the Schluter edge, as I mentioned before, they're going to be similar, meeting up with the metal on both sides. It's the inside one tight into the inside corner of the wall that the tile is going to be different, fluctuating in size because of the back wall being out of level. Our Schluter metal edge is definitely level, and we're trying to create a mirror image on each side. So all the tiles going up that edge have to be identical in size. So here's my smaller piece, and then here's my other piece that's exactly halfway down for the half pattern offset line. So I've got to cut 12 of these, and I've got to cut 12 of these. So I'm just gonna take my one, set my gauge up to it. This is one of those situations where you want to cut all 12 once you set it once, rather than going through and cutting one and then cutting a different one and moving this around all the time. Consistent error is way better than random error. So set up a fence, cut all your ones that have to be the one size, set up a fence for the other size, and go through and cut those. So. Okay, got my guide set up. Again, it's going to be, this will make sure that all my pieces are consistently the same size. So here we go. So the tiles that I've chosen can be cut with a quick cutter. They are clay on the inside, so these are the easiest ones to work with. My full tile that's going in on the inside wall just has a slight trim off on the end. The quick cutter won't break that edge for you, so you just gotta use these after you create your line. So I'm just gonna get on here, score through the glazing. Now, I don't know if you can see, but I got just a fine little white line that goes across the tile there. That is, in fact, the cutting wheel cutting through the glazing, creating the line for the break to happen. So now that I've got that line, I'm gonna use my tile nippers, bring them up to the line, and squeeze down. And as I'm going down, it is breaking along the line. Very jagged cut though. So just finish this off. Okay, so you can see how jagged that cut is. But I've got to use now I'm going to use my file. It's got a heavy course on the backside and a light course on the inside. If I use the heavy course near the glazing of the tile, it will chip it out. So what I like to do is just use the soft side and grind this edge first, just to create like a little bevel, and then use the heavy side to file this all straight. So you can note the unevenness of the tile at this point, and I'm going to show you how to file it down. So you can see that I've got the line right cleaned up. When it meets the inside corner, it's a nice tight joint. So that's what you want to achieve. Again, if you want to use these type of tiles and not use a wet saw, that's how you can make a cut near the very edge. So now that I've got all my border pieces cut, I gotta proceed and file those edges nice and flat too, because they're gonna be going against the Schluter. And you can see here that these pieces are all a little bit uneven as well. So I'm just gonna take the time and clean those up. So just going to start laying out for this side wall. The back wall here is all dry and finished off. You can do this in the same day. You just have to be very delicate when you're touching into this wall if you haven't let it dry for the day. I've let it dry for the day so I can bump into it, things like that. I suggest if you're just starting on tiling that you do it that way. Causes less stress. So now you can see here that I ended with a full tile and ended the next row with a half tile. So ideally I want to take a half tile, meet up with that one so that I've got it looking properly, and then a full tile up there, okay? Now the problem with this situation for me is that when I put my level on this back wall, the back wall actually is out of level a little bit and goes further away. So if I choose to use an exact half tile and a full tile on the inside, by the time I get to the top where it's out of level, it will be, my line would be here and the wall would be further than the full tile away. So I'd have to put a little sliver piece in there. So to prevent that, I'm going to use a half tile, reduce it by a 1/4 inch, which is the distance I'm out of level up there, and I'm going to scribe that line all the way level up. Then I'm going to use my 5 7/8 offset line for the full tiles, which if I come 5 7/8 off the line, I've already reduced that 1/4 inch. I'll be taking a 1/4 inch off these full tiles as well. Likely until I get near the top, and then it should be getting close to full tiles again. Everything from your line this way in your pattern should be perfectly level. The Schluter is perfectly level on both sides. These two lines I'm going to shoot up are perfectly level. This back wall is not, so we're going to take some time to set that up right now. Then I will be able to come up with the measurements for my tiles for here and here for the cut pieces into the Schluter, which will match identical to the other side. And then I can proceed with dry fitting the inside corner and coming up to the line to custom size those pieces to fit the irregular back wall. So hope you understand all that. So I'm gonna take my half tile, just gonna come in on it, that 1/4 inch. Set that up on the wall, mark that line where it is. That's the line I'm going to level all the way up to the top. Okay, so now that I've got this level line up here, I'm going to create my offset line off of it and level it up as well. So just measuring my 5 7/8. Okay, so now that I've got my two lines set up, I'm going to proceed with a dry fit. Not too sure if you can see this, but this first tile here, you can see there's a line beside my other line. That is the level line going up if I was to use a full half tile. So you can see that it's on the line right there, but when I go up here, it's not on the line anymore. The line is right there and it's 1/4 inch behind. So that's why that I made that reduced line, the distance that's out of level, so that these tiles do work up near the top. So going to use these lines and proceed with the dry fit, just so that I can figure out my pieces down here at the side. And then I'm gonna go one tile at a time, put them up to where they're gonna go, mark them, number them, that would be 3, and custom cut all these ones to the line, and then proceed with the dry fit, make sure everything's good, and then glue up the wall. So I'm gonna start my dry fitting. Got a full tile. Right, space is looking good. Now I'm just measure off of here to the line, and I know what my border cut piece is. 3 5/8. Just be right back to cut that. My piece, 3 5/8. Okay. Full tile. On my offset line. Measuring from here to the Schluter. 9 5/8. Just gonna go cut that. Okay, I've got my piece cut. I'm just gonna fit it in. Okay, so you set? Okay, so my Schluter is level, my level line, my offset indicator line are all level. So by doing a dry fit like this, I've determined that these two pieces are gonna be exact same size all the way up this wall, and I'm gonna use the same layout on the other side of the wall, so they're gonna be the same all the way up that wall. So I can take this dimension and I can cut all the pieces I need up this wall and for that wall, and I take this dimension and I cut all those pieces I need. Then all that's left to do is custom cut each tile. All that's left to do is custom cut each tile from this back wall to the indicator line each way. So that's where the variance is going to be. So take my tile and line it up with full tile number 4. Put it up against. Mark a cut line on my indicator line. So now this one here, once I trim that off, is going to fit perfectly into the layout and tight against the other wall. So I've got a full tile here. Just going to set it in on this bottom row, mark my cut line. Put my X on the wayside, label this one as piece number 1, okay? Got a full tile going up to row number 2. Put it in there. Mark it on the indicator line. And this is tile number 2. This is tile number 1. I'm just gonna, because it's less than half the tile, I'm gonna flip it and use it to mark on the other side. And this is tile number 3. Full tile. Mark the line. This is tile number 4. Now proceed with going all the way up to the top, doing the exact same thing, fitting all the inside corner tiles to your offset line. Then do a final dry fit if you're not feeling comfortable about it. If you're feeling comfortable about it, go ahead and glue. I still prefer to do the dry fit because then I know everything's going to work perfect when I go to glue them down. So work your way to the top, custom cut each one, mark a number so you don't get them confused, and work them into a dry fit on the floor so that you know exactly where each tile goes. Then go to your other wall. To get these indicator points on your other wall, I like to measure from the front edge of the schluter, mimicking the same layout on that wall, and then work your inside corners to your line as well. So take your tape off your schluter, 21.5, 27 3/8. Go to the other wall. On the schluter edge here, mark 21.5, and it's a 5 7/8 offset, so off that line, go another 5.5, and level those lines up, and you're ready to start on this side as well. So now that I've got these first tiles up, I'm running into the shower valve. So I'm just going to hold my tile in its approximate location, mark the 2 outside edges, and mark the height. I'm going to remove that section of the tile. Now this cut for the valve doesn't have to be precise. This is the finished trim for the shower valve. Simply is going to go on there. It's got a handle, but you can see that I'll have ample coverage of the rest of the tile around there. So So this will be good enough. So if you want, we'll head over to the wet saw and I'll show you how to make a notch cut like this. So now that I've cut the notch out of the tile for the shower valve, you can see the tile is still a little wet from being on the wet saw. I'm just gonna dry fit the tile in for now, figure out the notch for above the shower valve, just give these pieces a little bit more time to dry before I glue them. With a wet tile, the glue doesn't really adhere to it as well. So yeah, recommended to let your tiles dry before you glue them up. So that one can stick.
Just hold on.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Watch how easy these ones break. Sorry, I just need to measure. Just under 7.
Well,
Okay. Good.
So now that you've got your shower valve cut around, notched around, it's time to glue these up. Okay, so now that I've got these 3 rows back buttered and installed, you can see I've got a nice opening cut around my shower valve. That bigger scutcheon that I was showing you earlier can be removed at any time to visually see the plumbing, but it is large enough to in fact cover over the hole that's there, so perfect. I'm just gonna use my level, check my horizontal line. Everything's looking nice and flat and even. Then I'll proceed to glue out the rest of this wall and finish tiling the shower walls. So now that you've got your shower valve cut around, notched around, it's time to glue these up. Okay, so now that I've got these 3 rows back buttered and installed, you can see I've got a nice opening cut around my shower valve. That bigger scutcheon that I was showing you earlier can be removed at any time to visually see the plumbing, but it is large enough to in fact cover over the hole that's there, so perfect. I'm just gonna use my level, check my horizontal line. Everything's looking nice and flat and even. Then I'll proceed to glue out the rest of this wall and finish tiling the shower walls.
Okay.
Okay, so now that you've got your walls done to your ledger board, it's time to take a look at the floor. I've got a cabinet going in here as we spoke of earlier when we were doing the plumbing and all that kind of stuff. I've got a toilet flange right here to go around, and then the rest is pretty square and pretty easy. I'll have a Schluter strip at the doorway as well. So what I'd like to do to start is build a base for my cabinet to put down on the floor to dry fit my tiles up to. If you don't have your cabinet at this point in construction, you can tile underneath the whole area and level your cabinet on top of that. That's an acceptable way. Some cabinets have plastic legs, some have full closed off boxes. I'm using knockdown cabinets that I build plywood bases for, set them level, and drop my cabinets on top. So for my situation, I am going to install that base before I do my tile floor layout, and then I'll proceed to do a dry fit with the floor tiles just to make sure everything's perfect again and that I like everything, and then I'll mix up some thin set and glue down this floor. So come along to the garage with me, we're going to start building this base. Okay, so now we're back into the garage here. I've got my plywood ripped to 4 3/4 high, and I've ripped it to the length of 42 inches. the cabinet base I'm building is 42 inches by 19. So we got my 4 studs here, cut at 19 minus the thickness of these two, which is 1.5 inches off of that. So 17.5 for my stud pieces and 42 inches for my top and bottom plates. Very similar to framing a wall. I'm gonna do my 16 on center layout down the center. I'm gonna use my pneumatic stapler, shoots these staples to build my framework, and then I should be ready to install it into the basement. Okay, so now I've got my 42 inch by 19 inch cabinet base assembled. I'm gonna bring it down to the basement, screw that down into the washroom, and begin my dry fitting for my tile. Okay, so now that you've got your base built in place, time to just throw a level on it, check it out, and then screw it down. When I'm screwing it down to the floor, I'm just gonna screw it into the base plate of the wall, across this wall, and the base plate across the wall here. Not too worried about hitting studs. In this situation, the force from the cabinet is all downward, not necessary to get crazy with how you fasten this in. So hitting the bottom plate on the two sides would be sufficient enough. All right, all looks good. so very securely fastened in cabinet base. Now I'm gonna proceed with finding the center line of this washroom floor so that I can figure out my tile layout. So I'm gonna start laying out the tile on the floor. For starters, I need to find the center line of this washroom floor. You can see on the wall here, the reason I'm going with the center floor tile pattern is that I've got a center pattern happening on the wall. So this is my center point again for the wall. I've just got to find a way to transfer this point down to the floor, and then I can figure out what I'm doing down there. So I'm just going to take a total measurement of the width, mark a pencil line by the edge of the tub, and go from there. Okay, so that's the center line of the bathroom. I'm going to take another measurement parallel off this wall to get over, just so I can make a dry line down through there. So. Okay, so now that you've got your center line, you need to figure out if your full tile is going to be on the left side of the line, or if in fact it's going to be first tile on the center, like center of the tile on the center line. So how I determine that is if I start off the line here like this, this would be my second tile. Now this third tile is a little strip, less than half of the tile. So if I adjust my layout, if I adjust my layout by half the tile, I'll be adding half a tile to this strip, and it's more aesthetically pleasing to see a larger border tile. It also helps with hiding the flaws. So I've marked a center line on this tile. I'm gonna put it on this tile and dry fit into the wall and see if I'm happy with that layout. As you can see here, this is over half a tile, so this is much better looking than a thin strip. So this is the layout that I'm gonna go with. Now that I've got my tile sitting on the center line, I could just use my pencil and mark this edge of the tile, and that would be the line that I'm gonna run my tile off of. So on my pencil, double check that I'm on there. So you can see center line, edge of tile. So this is my new line that I'm gonna run the floor tile dry pattern off of. Another thing that I wanna do, I like to start with a full tile against the bathtub, but I also need to know what it's gonna end like at the doorway, because I do not want a little piece at the end of the doorway. So I'm just gonna do a rough dry fit from the tub down to the end of the door here to double check what that piece is gonna be before I get set on this layout. I am gonna be using 1/4" shims when I go, or sorry, 3/16" shims when I go to put this floor down. But for this purpose, I can just dry fit it by eye just to see what happens at the end. Okay, so you can see here that if I start with a full tile against the bathtub, I do have a greater, like I do end with a full tile at the doorway. The Schluter edge is supposed to be halfway underneath the door. This door swings inward, so this line that I've got right here is 3/4 inches back from the door, or from the wall edge. That is gonna be center line of my door, so I'm gonna be cutting this tile off just 3/4 of an inch, which is perfect for me. That's like a really good scenario. So if it had been short like that, and I was putting this thin piece in, I would adjust my layout at the bathtub to make it larger over here. So in my case, I'm going full tile off the bathtub, but you'll have to do a dry fit to see what pattern is gonna work best for you. Okay, so now that you've done your dry fit to the door and you're happy with your layout, in my situation, I'm using a full tile against the tub. In doing so, I have also gave myself the indicator point for the edge of my tile, which is right there. I'm going to measure off the wall to that point and transfer it down further and chalk that line right through. Or in my case, because it's a smaller area, I'm just going to use my level as a straight edge and connect the pencil line all the way through. So 3 foot quarter. Okay, so now that I've got this line parallel with this wall, I'm not exactly sure if the bathtub is square with this wall or if the other wall's even square. So I'm gonna proceed by taking some measurements off this line to the wall, to this cabinet base, just to get a sense if the line is square or if I've got to make some adjustments. So got my framing square, just gonna run it parallel on this line. Okay, so I'm running parallel on this line, and when I check to see if my bathtub is square, I'm seeing an even gap from one end to the other, which would lead me to believe that this wall is square to this bathtub line, which is a good sign because that's a majority of where your eye is going to focus when you come into this washroom. So I'm just going to proceed by checking a couple more spots, but looks like I'm going to be happy with this center line down through. So
Okay, hold on one sec.
yeah.
Just show this.
Yeah, let me put it right up.
Okay.
See, like that is wicked right there. Like, you get that at home, you're not gonna have any problems.
Cool.
Okay, and we'll just fake me measuring these. Don't get super closely on the tape measure, maybe pan out, because I think there is gonna be some little differences, and I don't know how good people's eyes will be.
Okay.
You all set?
Yep.
That's right, square. Okay, so that's all looking good for me. Now I want to create intersecting access point down through this line so that I've got one cross line to work the tile off of as well. So what I'm going to do is dry fit 2 rows of tile in, find out where that edge is, and then square off this line, a line down through. So. Got my 3/16 inch floor shims. Okay, so I've dry fit 2 tiles in off the tub. Then I've added the grout width joint and marked a pencil line at this intersecting point. Now, I chose to use the tile edge for my indicator line rather than center of grout joint. You could select center of grout joint or this edge of the tile, whichever you choose. So I'm gonna move this tile out of the way, take my framing square, nice and parallel on this line, follow my pencil up the other one. Back on my indicator point, parallel on this line. Okay, so these 4 bays should be exactly square. Okay, so now that I've checked the 4 bays, know that they're all square, I'm just gonna use my level to extend the line right to the wall. So all right, so now I've got the access point for the floor tiles. Using this line to follow the exact edge of this, the exact right-hand side edge of this tile. I'm using this line to represent the 3rd row top edge of the tile. So everything's square. I'm going to proceed with the full dry fit of this room, which means setting the tiles in their exact location, figuring out all my cuts before I mix up my glue to glue it down. So I've got my tile first 3 pieces dry fit on, and I've got my end piece cut to size. Now I've got the Schluter piece here that comes down from the walls. One method to deal with this would be to line the tile up with the bottom, guesstimate how much thin set is going to add to the thickness, and then mark the Schluter and cut it. Then when you're gluing down the tiles, go underneath of it. That's fairly tricky to do because sometimes you have a little bit more thin set built up there, or not enough, and you're not right flush with the underside of the Schluter. So in this case for me, I'm going to make a notch into my tile at the exact location of where the Schluter is. And that way when I bring my wall tiles down, they'll just land right on top of this tile perfectly. So I'm just gonna dry fit it in there, and I'm gonna mark this point, and then go to my wet saw and just cut it a blade width to a blade width and a half to the depth of the Schluter. Same on the other side. Okay, so we're at the wet saw here. Got my pencil line marked onto the tile. Got a scrap piece of that Schluter. So like I said before, we're just gonna use the thickness of the blade to notch into the tile, the depth of this Schluter piece. Okay, so now I've got my floor all dry fit in. I've used my 3/16 shims in every location that I'm going to when I glue it down. I followed my pencil line across here perfectly and my access point line there. And then the rest of it was just relying on the shims to keep the correct spacing and line. So if you're doing a larger floor, you're gonna wanna put more lines on so that you have references that you're getting back to your exact situation with your dry fit. Now, if you have a dry fit done and you stayed on your lines and it looks this good and ready to go, then it's time to pull it out, keep everything in order, and mix your thin set up and get ready to glue it down. Okay, back up a little bit. I'm just gonna do a little talk about the thin set. All set?
Yeah.
Okay, so now that I've got my thin set mixed with the water, you're looking for a real fluffy, well, with the particular brand I'm using, you're looking for a real fluffy looking consistency to the thin set. You don't want it too dry because it'll be really hard to spread with the trowel, but you don't want it too wet that when you spread it or comb it out, that it slumps down. It's gotta kind of hold its own weight up. So mix it drier than wetter, that's for sure. Basically follow the directions that's on your thin set. Start by using less water and adding to it like you saw me do to get the right consistency. Now I've got to let this sit for 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, remix it up without adding any water, and then I'm ready to use it on my floor. Most thin sets that I've used have that additional step to allow a chemical reaction within the thin set to happen in that first 5 to 10 minutes. Then you beat it up again so that it's ready to go. So we're gonna wait 5 minutes and then we're gonna get back at it. Okay, so now I've got my thin set all mixed up, ready to go. Here's the trowel that I was using for the wall tiles. It was a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. Specified me to use that for the size tile. With the size floor tiles I'm using and the thin set adhesive that I'm using, my directioners are telling me to use a 1/4 inch by 3/8 notch trowel. So that basically, as you can see here, will leave a higher combed line when I spread it out. So this is my specified tile from the manufacturer of the thin set, coinciding with the size tiles that I'm using. So. Okay, so if you notice here, I've mixed my thin set perfectly. When I'm combing it out, you can see that it does not slump down. It's maintaining its exact position that it comes out of the trowel. So if you're not seeing that, if you're seeing it drop down, you've mixed your thin set too wet, you need to get rid of that batch because you can't remix and add water and add powder after you've went through the process. So anyways, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I spread it out thin with the trowel to start and then comb it out after. So just gonna get this section done and throw it on the tiles. Okay, so that's looking really good. I'm gonna grab my tiles and start fitting them in. Now when I set a floor tile, I like to get it in its rough location, let it fall down, make sure I'm on my line. Now I'm just very loosely setting them for now. I'm going to use my hands and maybe even possibly this rubber mallet to set them to get the heights all flat together. Set your tile in on your edge, drop it, slide it over to its position. Okay, so now that you've got your first section glued down and set down and shimmed apart, you want to take something flat like a level and just kind of see how the tiles are lined up with each other. You want to get this floor as flat as possible and true with each tile. So grab a straight edge, begin to look at how it's sitting. You can see that this tile is a little higher than this one, so I can wiggle it down. Just kind of start checking all over with each other. Now that I've got them relatively where I want, I'm just going to give one last firm press to them just to make sure they're in the thin set really well, and then carry on with spreading some more glue out. Okay, so now that I've done my dry fit for the last row of tiles into the bathtub, I've got them sitting here just showing the seriousness of the issue with the ledger board and the unevenness of the bathtub. I strongly recommend that, that you go with the ledger route if you're a beginner at tiling. It ensures that from the ledger board up that you're working on a nice level surface. Then you're able to take your time grinding and cutting these tiles perfectly to fit down into the bathtub. If you're a little bit more advanced tiler, you could take the time to do all the cutting ahead of time, working to a level line that you establish on the wall. So you just have to choose which route works for you. But again, I strongly suggest the ledger board for 100% result. Okay, you can see here that this piece of wood trim would be fairly straight. Here I am. This would represent the bathtub edge. and you could see how much it curves up into the corners for this bathtub. Then when you're coming over into the side here, you can see that it is curving up again to the inside corner and curving to the round edge of the tub. So I've got all this grinding and fitting to make sure it all fits nice. Same with this side down here. It's not completely parallel. I know that my Schluter edge down here is perfect, but the bathtub itself is not exactly straight and parallel with the level Schluter edge. And as you can see on this side, this round carve is not as deep as, say, the round carving that I had to do on the other side. So there is quite a few imperfections with the bathtub, as mentioned before. Okay, so now that your wall tiles to the ceiling are done, it's time to take off your ledger board and start cutting your tiles to fit underneath your bottom row. So proceed with removing the ledger board, and then I'll show you how to mark each tile out so that you can get them cut properly, because there is going to be some inconsistencies with the bottom cut. So here we go. So one thing I'd like to mention here is that you can see how effortlessly this ledger board came off because I didn't get any glue or adhesive from the tile on this edge, and that is one of the main reasons why I back buttered the first row, just so there's no tile adhesive sticking this wood block in and causing me problems to get it out. Okay, so now that I've got that pulled out, you can see my my original center line and my offset line are right there on all the sides. So what I like to do is start in your center. Obviously I'm using my offset line for this row just so I can keep my half stagger going. The tile is going to sit approximately there, but you need to cut off the bottom the correct amount to make this similar grout joint size to what's happening above. So with the tile in that position, I know that this side is my left side, this is my right side, so, and this is my left side of the tile. So I can turn this tile upside down and mark the approximate height for that grout line on this edge. So you can see that I'm able to mark it. Once I cut that off and flip the tile back this way, it should be at the perfect height to go up underneath there. So again, on the right side, okay, so here's my left side point, which is closer to the full tile than my right side point, which is further away from being a full tile, which means this tile is actually going to get cut on a taper just to follow the uneven taper of the bathtub. So very simple method. Now I'll go to my wet saw or use my quick cutter. I like to use a wet saw in this situation, but if you didn't rent one and you don't have one, you can use a quick cutter. It's just not going to be as clean of a cut at the bottom. So this is, I'm going to mark out the one, I'll dry fit it in with, I'll tape it down, then I'll move along and keep going all the way around this situation until I've got it looking similar to the grout lines that are above. Then I'll pull it out and be ready to glue them all in. Okay, so now that I've got all my tiles cut, it's time to back butter them in and get them installed. Okay, so because I was trying to achieve such a tight joint on the bottom here, I don't want to use my my rubber shims that I used here along the bottom because it would be too thick. I try to get it a little bit closer than that. So I'm just gonna have to use some torn up cardboard just to get this shimmed a tiny little bit up to make this match this grout joint above. So just tear off a strip, fold it up. See this one here, I even had to carve out the bottom corner a little bit just to get it nice and snug in this inside corner. Just used my wet saw and kind of carved on the blade underneath like that. It's fitting nice and tight now, but would have been definitely popping out like this if I didn't do that. So. Just one thing I'd like to point out, as you can see here, I'm right on my pencil line coming off this inside corner. Just strong believer in that dry fit because that's exactly where it was when I had dry fitted it before. So yeah, it's just nice to see when you hit right back on one of your lines and it's all going good, you know? So on this part here, I'm just gonna work my way from the bottom before I worry about my joints, and then I'll set some shims between it to get them as perfect as I can on the vertical piece here. Okay, so got my bottom row and sides fitted in tight to the tub, all glued in, shimmed, and looking good. So this pretty well concludes the installation of the wall tiles. So now I'm going to proceed with letting it dry for a day or so, using my utility knife to clean out grout joints where adhesive is present. You want to clean everything 100% before you start grouting, so it's time to take your time and go through everything. You can see I got glue remnants all over that you want to avoid. Like for instance, right there, there's glue that's too close to the surface. I'm gonna use my utility knife, scrape that out. There's surface glue on tiles like this. It will catch with your grout and could get into these joints while you're grouting, so better just to get it all gone before you start. So hope you'll have good success with your project, and thanks for watching. Okay, so I'm complete my shower wall installation. Now sometimes when you're tiling walls or even floors, you'll have a tile that is uneven with another tile or just didn't stay in the correct spot that you put it in. Before you do your grouting is the time that you can individually remove a tile to be able to replace it in a better position or whatever has happened with your tile. Whatever reason your tile is not right, you want to hit it before the grout happens. You would use a hammer. You would smash this tile gently, individually, and you'll get it to break into pieces. You gotta pull it off, clean off the adhesive off your drywall, and then refit another piece in. So, in my situation, I don't have any tiles that I need to replace, but if you do have one that's bothering you, now's the time to do it before your grout goes in.